Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with me today. You are about to hear an intense and remarkable story from the heart of Igbo land. This is a story of courage, strategy, and the relentless spirit of a people defending their home. Before we go deeper, if you enjoy this coverage, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Every like helps us bring you more updates like this in real time. Now let's set the scene. Recent reports have confirmed that for the first time, armed bandits attempted to invade parts of southeastern Nigeria, areas that are the home of the Igbo people. This isn't just a minor incident. These are heavily armed groups trying to make a foothold. And naturally, it caused alarm in local communities. Villagers were scared, homes were threatened, and there was real concern about safety. But then, something remarkable happened. Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, known to many as ipob, emerged as a central figure in repelling this threat. Now, I want you to understand, this isn't a story about lone heroics alone. It's about inspiration and mobilization. Kanu's influence, even from outside the front line, was enough to rally local communities and vigilante groups to take action. Reports from the field suggest that communities quickly organized. Local groups trained and coordinated under guidance, inspired by Kanu's messaging, managed to track and confront the intruders. In several towns, these defenders forced the bandits to retreat, reclaiming control of their lands without waiting for federal forces. It's a display of grassroots organization that's both impressive and rare. As we move along this story, remember to hit like and subscribe. It keeps you updated with the news that matters from your region and beyond. Now, let's talk about how this situation developed. In the days leading up to the invasion, there were warnings that tensions were rising. Rumors had circulated online and through local channels that armed groups were moving closer to Igbo communities. Many feared the worst. But the difference this time was preparation. Nnamdi Kanu, through his networks, emphasized vigilance, awareness, and readiness. The bandits may have expected easy targets. That's the pattern elsewhere, sadly. But in Igbo land, the communities had learned. They weren't passive. They had strategies, communication channels, and a clear sense of purpose. When the first confrontation happened, it was swift. People were organized, and they did not panic. It's also important to highlight that this wasn't just about fighting. The defenders worked to protect civilians, ensure families were safe, and prevent property destruction as much as possible. It was a disciplined response, and that's why it became such a notable story across the region. I want to pause for a moment and remind you, if you are following this live gist, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You'll get full coverage of these developments as they unfold, straight from the source. As the confrontation continued over the next several days, more reports came in. The bandits tried multiple approaches, thinking they could overwhelm these communities. But every attempt was countered effectively. And this is where Kanu's leadership and messaging made a real difference. His cause for unity, preparedness, and strategic defense inspired people to act without fear. One of the most remarkable parts of this story is how ordinary citizens became defenders overnight. People who would normally go about their day suddenly found themselves coordinating patrols, assisting in logistics, and helping to monitor movements. It was community action at its most intense, driven by a shared sense of purpose and pride in defending their land. Before I go further into the ongoing events, I want to remind you, liking and subscribing isn't just support for the channel. It's support for keeping this story alive, for helping more people understand what is happening in real time in Igbo land. As the days went on, the situation in Igbo land became a model of organized resistance. The bandits underestimated the coordination and discipline of these local defenders. In towns that were first targeted, reports showed that communication networks set up by the communities allowed them to respond quickly. Neighbors alerted each other, routes were secured, and vulnerable areas were reinforced. One important point here is that this wasn't random chaos. It was organized, strategic, and very much inspired by Nnamdi Kanu's influence. Even though he wasn't physically present, his leadership and guidance had created a framework that the people could rely on. This is the reason why, time and again, these communities were able to repel the attacks without major casualties or losses. At this stage, the bandits started realizing that Igbo land would not be an easy target. Multiple attempts were made to regroup and approach smaller villages, thinking they could catch people off guard. But each time the locals were ready. Stories came in from several villages about how volunteers set up barricades, patrolled the outskirts, and ensured that every approach route was monitored. And here's something that really caught attention. Young people, many of them students and professionals, joined the defense efforts. They were patrolling, relaying information, and even helping with logistics and medical support. This was a clear sign that the influence of Kanu and the local networks extended beyond just warnings. It inspired action across all segments of the community. Now I want to remind you all, if you're following this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. You don't want to miss updates because this story is still unfolding and there's a lot more to cover. As the conflict continued, local media and eyewitnesses started broadcasting real-time updates. Social media buzzed with videos of villagers alerting each other, setting up defenses and confronting the invaders. International observers began taking note, highlighting how a community with limited resources could successfully defend itself with organization and determination. At this point, the bandits had suffered repeated setbacks. They were forced to retreat multiple times, unable to achieve their objective. And while some may have expected external forces to intervene, it was primarily the community's own action, inspired by Kanu's directives, that protected the land. There's also a wider social and political angle here. This situation has reignited discussions about security in Nigeria, especially the responsibility of federal and state governments to protect citizens. Many analysts are asking why communities had to fend for themselves and whether the lessons from this conflict will be applied nationwide. But in the middle of all that debate, what cannot be ignored is the courage and resilience of the Igbo people. Another striking aspect is the moral effect this had on surrounding areas. Neighboring communities, seeing how well the Igbo people organized, were motivated to improve their own security networks. This story, beyond being local news, is shaping the perception of community-led security strategies in Nigeria. Before we go deeper, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Every click helps bring more stories like this to light and ensures that updates on these events reach everyone who needs to hear them. Back to the story. During the height of the conflict, there were also reports of negotiations happening behind the scenes. Community elders reached out to mediators to prevent unnecessary escalation. But while dialogue was ongoing, the community remained alert, ensuring no gaps for the bandits to exploit. This balance of diplomacy and vigilance was key to preventing larger casualties. And here's the part that really highlights the single-handedly angle from the headline. Kanu's influence created the blueprint for all these. People who might have felt powerless found structure and courage because of the strategic messages he shared through his network. It's a reminder that leadership isn't only about physical presence, it's about mobilizing people, inspiring action, and building trust in challenging times. We're just scratching the surface of how extensive this response was. Entire villages coordinated like never before, setting up night watches, alternating patrols, and ensuring communication lines were always open. The bandits, facing a unified and prepared population, had no choice but to retreat entirely in several regions. And remember, if you haven't yet, like this video and subscribe. The next parts of this story will go even deeper, covering how these actions may change security strategies in Nigeria, how local authorities reacted, and what this means for the future of Igbo land and beyond.